Preface by Ken Gordon, D.D., Spiritual Leader. Centers for Spiritual Living. Inevitably, when the soul is right and the mind is ripe, a book appears that plants a seed, resonate in the individual that transforms a life and creates an indelible mark on humanity. This is such a book. The author, Ernest Holmes, was one of the prominent thinkers of the 20th century. His gift was an insatiable mind and an uncommon ability to see through the temporal to the spiritual gifts of life. And this book, The Science of Mind, is a reflection of this. His mind allowed him to see through the foibles of human thinking and directly into the soul of life. And in so doing, he brought about a work that transcends the dogma and doctrine of religious philosophy and inevitably catapults readers into the principles of a spiritual life itself. With a consistent and mystical flavor, Holmes walks readers through their own personal as well as societal layers of confusion, myth, and false beliefs, and awakens within them an understanding of a relevant, personal, and purposeful spiritual philosophy. It is a philosophy for all denominations, all theologies, and all faiths. The Science of Mind is a pivotal book in human history. Since its publication in 1927, it has been read by hundreds of thousands of people and has been a catalyst for transforming and awakening millions. The book has stood the test of time and is still the foundational work of hundreds of churches. And spiritual centers around the world. It is rare today to find a motivational or spiritual author or speaker who has not read or been connected in some way to this book. All of these great individuals were drawn by the depth and clarity of Ernest Holmes' teaching. And as is the case with all such books, The Science of Mind is not about one idea repeated 1,000 times, but 1,000 ideas that meld as one. It deserves to be digested, not devoured. The basic theme is the coming together of the spiritual principles presented in many of the major world theologies in order to form a compendium for personal action. The basic theme is the coming together of the spiritual principles presented in many of the major world theologies in order to form a compendium for personal action. Holmes has taken the common truths found in most religions, then has removed concepts of fear, leaving only the love, with the general idea being that love is synonymous with God and fear is made by man. This book's power to awaken and transform comes less from its ability to articulate than its ability to stir the soul. Truly, the book is an operating manual for the human condition. The Science of Mind has been a pretended revealer of human spirituality for almost 100 years and is perhaps more relevant today than ever before. In the opening chapter, Ernest Holmes writes, "We all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible." I believe that day is at hand. Today, when change in every aspect of our society and lives is not only ever occurring, but actually expanding in regularity. The tools Holmes shares with us in this magnificent book are more valuable than ever. Not just for us as individuals, but also for society and the world itself. Ernest Shirtleft Holmes was born on January 21st, 1887 in Lincoln, Maine. When he was a child, his family referred to him as the perpetual question mark. He learned to read with an annotated Bible, and at 12 years of age discovered a volume of Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays through his older brother. The inspiration from Emerson and the other transcendentalists marked him for life, and he began his studies in earnest when he set out giving talks throughout America. As a young man, he briefly studied Christian Science, and he discovered through it the teachings of Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, who is known as the father of New Thought. With his understanding still incomplete, Holmes moved on, continuing his search for his own spiritual philosophy. He was an ordained divine science minister speaking to crowds in Los Angeles when he discovered what he considered to be the missing component in his own personal religious philosophy. That was Judge Thomas Troward, an Anglican judge in India, who had written a book called the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science. When Holmes discovered this missing link, even though he in no way stopped his studies, it is said that he felt he had completed his philosophical foundation. In 1927, with Emerson's inspiration, Quimby's healing, and Troward's logic, he wrote The Science of Mind, thus bringing into being one of the greatest spiritual tomes of all time. And in 1946, with the encouragement and involvement of his students, he created the organization International Association of Religious Science Churches, which is known today as the Centers for Spiritual Living. Holmes' greatest contribution to New Thought and the world was his concept and study of affirmative prayer, which he referred to as spiritual mind treatment, a process of direct communication with one's higher power within. Holmes referred to prayer as clear thinking, and its intention was to relieve any need for the individual to have a go-between or broker between the individual and God. This process, which is taught at all religious science centers, is now practiced by millions throughout the world and serves as Ernest Holmes' single greatest gift to humanity. As wonderful and powerful as this book is, Holmes' desire was not for it to become a mass publication or a commercial success. In the final conclusion, which ends the general summary of the book, he sums up with these words. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than to have him repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. In the final conclusion, which ends the general summary of the book, he sums up with these words. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than to have him repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. It is far easier to teach the truth than it is to practice it. Ernest Holmes' legacy includes a dynamite healing and teaching movement that serves the world today. He is the author of many great and wonderful books, and his teachings are shared in countless ways throughout the world. But his true legacy to us was his indomitable spirit, his ability to see beauty in every act, and his consistent love of life. If read closely, this book, The Science of Mind, his dominant work, contains everything that is required to awaken humanity, and if applied, create a world that works for everyone. I bless Ernest Holmes, and I see him as the father of conscious evolution and a leading architect of the world that is and the one that is yet to come. That was the preface.